Hey folks, it is the Nutty Knife Guy. Not so close to the camera this time. I'm learning. This is kind of a video that I really didn't want to do, but I kind of feel the need for it. I'm fiddling with a knife that is stuck. And I do mean stuck. Well now, in preparing to do this video, it looks like I might have broken a knife. Just a moment. This video is kind of about broken knives. Okay, I think that's better. Yeah. Little liner stick here. Okay, or possibly I just forgot to put this. Actually, it's not liner stick. I gotta be honest. I just forgot to disengage this safety that's on this cold steel Crawford. Okay, rethinking the liner lock. Okay, you guys who have been watching my channel for a little bit know about my experience with the cold steel Luzon. For those of you that don't, I'll link the two relevant videos. I did a video testing the cold steel Luzon against the cold steel Spartan. Now, it wasn't a real fair test when it comes to locks because the Spartan has a triad lock. That's an excellent lock. It's just sound as all get out. And the Luzon is much less expensive and has a liner lock. But the liner lock failed, and in the first video you can actually see me get cut. I was a little careless in the way I was holding it during the spine whack test, but honestly I had enough faith in cold steel that I didn't figure that liner lock would fail. But it did, and it took a slice out of my thumb. And I sent that one back, and they sent me another Luzon, and it had the same problems with its lock. Now, a lot of you will say that the spine whack test is invalid. It's not the way the knife is intended to take stress. It's very unlikely that you would put stress on a blade like that under real use, and that's all true. I can understand why people don't think it's the liner lock thing. But all of that is true 90% of the time under normal conditions. And I've been thinking about doing a video like this for a long time about liner locks in general and cold steel liner locks in particular. Because I've had three cold steel liner locks now that don't work. And I'll talk about the third one here because I just got it about a week ago. But something happened to me today. I was out in the garage and I was cutting up boxes to be disposed of. And I was using this Cubey, and forgive me, I will put, do they have a model number on here so I can tell you? No, but I was using this Cubey. I reviewed this Cubey relatively recently. I can't remember the model number, but I really like this knife. Cubeys are great. But I was using this, and I was cutting some boxes, and it sailed through the box much faster than it was. There was like resistance. I was actually cutting the tape in the middle of the box, was holding it together, and there was a lot of resistance. And then for some reason, all of a sudden there wasn't, and my hand went like that. It went out, and then there was just that automatic rebound. It went this way, except right next to me there was a lawnmower, and the curve of the handle was about right here in relation to me, about actually lower. And on that rebound, my spine of the knife caught the inside of that lawnmower handle, and the lock held. Had it not held, I would have probably wound up in the emergency room. And maybe my fingers might have even wound up packed in ice, waiting to be surgically reattached. So that made me think about what people said about my Luzon experience, that it's not meant to be done that way. And I was looking in forums when I was researching spine lock failures, because I had this video in mind for a long time. That it's not meant to be done that way. It's not a fair test. That's why cold steel puts the locks on their liner locks. But had that lock failed, with that kind of, and it wasn't that much because it was just a rebound action. Had that lock failed in this situation, that would have been a really serious injury to my drawing hand. So what I did is I went into my collection and I grabbed a couple of other knives. I grabbed this random knife. This is a Reich, not Reek, Reich. This is a gas station knife. I bought this for my video. Are gas station knives really that bad? And it cost me $7.50 at a local secondhand shop. Okay, so not a high-end knife. And I recently, just recently, as in about 3 hours ago, got this one from Ned Foss, which I can't wait to review this one. I can't wait to test it. I haven't tested it yet, but I have tested the lot with the spine whack test. And this one came at a fortuitous time because although they're very different knives, they are about the same length, and they're both, well, the Luzon's quite a bit longer, but they're still large folders, and they both have liner locks. And now let me get to the point. This is my new Cold Steel Crawford Model 1. A lot to like about this knife. I like the way it feels in the hand. It's very light. It's nice to carry. It's got these things for hand. It's got the equivalents for hand guards, which I really like. I will do a full review of this knife because I'm not writing this off because of the lock failure. But it is a lock failure. Now, of course, when it's on camera, I probably won't. I got my little wooden baton out here so you can see. I'm not whacking this thing very hard at all. Had I been using this today when I was cutting boxes and I whacked that lawnmower handle, I'd be emergency room bound. Okay, now we can try this with the safety engagement. I'm going to open it again, and I flipped it open hard. Use the safety, and this is a safety. Some of the people in my comments about the Luzon, that's not a safety, that's a lock. Right? It's meant to be used with a lock. The Cold Steel website calls it a secondary safety device. Okay. Right, now this is with lock. Sometimes it takes more than one whack, but not always. Not always. That was with the lock engaged. Okay, so just close so it doesn't harm anyone. And then we have the Cold Steel Luzon. Now the lock works better on this, I will admit. The first one I had, it didn't matter whether the lock was on or off, basically. But, again, okay, well, now see, I do look like an idiot. Okay. But, see, again, just to make sure, I'll flip this open again pretty hard. Because I guess I didn't do it hard enough, but still, I'm not talking about hard wax. And that opening didn't go quite as planned, so we'll do it again. Okay. Right, and one more time. Okay, with the lock, it's a little better. This might not fail at all. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I'm not going to sit here and whack it till it does. Okay, with the lock, this is pretty reliable. I'll admit that. But the thing of it is, people are going to forget. There are times when people are going to forget to engage this lock. And you shouldn't have, and it shouldn't need the lock to be reliable. It should just make it more reliable. So for this one, I'm going to do it again. Good hard open. Now also, full disclosure, if you get it closer to the handle, it usually stays okay. But this is a lot of leverage. Okay, now, my $7.50 gas station knife. $26 Ned Foss. They just call it. I think this is a DA5. I think that's what they call this, but what they call it in the ad more often than not is just a huge pocket knife, and this is a BV pocket knife. Just got this a couple of hours ago, but I have tested the lock. And this is a long knife, right? All right, now I really think when it comes to the spine whack test, and this is not a rag on cold steel, believe me. I did a whole video on all the cold steel stuff I have. I wouldn't be surprised if cold steel makes up 10% of my collection. Their triad lock is fantastic. Their fixed blades are fantastic. I can't have any other. I don't have any cold steel products that aren't liner lock knives that haven't been spectacular, that I haven't loved. But on its other hand, here's the Cubey that I used today. Now granted, cold steel, that's not all the cold steel interlocks. I think there was actually one I really wanted to buy. I can't remember what it's called. But, and I still may. But it's more of a Japanese style. It's almost like a folding kobun, but it's a liner lock. And I'm very hesitant to buy any more cold steel liner locks. I was really looking forward to this knife, and I'm not completely disappointed in this knife. But I now know that the knife is unreliable. This is essentially a slip joint knife. To me, this light knife has no lock. And it's not going in my EDC rotation, which is a shame, because everything else about it is so cool. This one is kind of on probation. I have to remember to, in order to be remotely reliable, the lock has to be on it. And, you know, people forget. I forget. And as I say, I would almost certainly. This thing is wicked, wicked, wicked sharp, and it's big, and it's got a thin, really thin edge. This would have taken, if I would have done that, if I would have had that little mishap today, where I caught the spine on that lawnmower handle, if I had been using this knife, I know I'd be missing fingers. But the whole thing, but what I really want to talk about is the whole idea of the spine whack test. Because a lot of people say it's stupid and it's not valid. But the thing is this, at least you know your lock will hold under those conditions. Now, I've already done some testing just because I was curious. I've done jamming this in with the point. I've thrown it into done a downward throw. I've dropped, I've done dropping it. And I will do a review and put this out on the War Post, but I'm going to be wearing gloves, because there is really not that much difference between this direction and that direction. And if you are thrusting as you would in any kind of a defensive situation, it's not likely to be a straight thrust. Your glide will be going like this. Now your point might be on line, so the force is directed this way. But if your angle is off, and that can happen, you're going to be getting force this way. And that's very close to this way. And it could go shut on your fingers. So when I test this, I'm going to be careful. I'm going to be wearing gloves, and at first I'm going to be very ginger. But the point is, this is a cold steel, and I forget how much I paid for this, but I think it was in the neighborhood of $40. I'm going to talk and look it up. I should have had this ready before, I know, but I wasn't going to do this video until later on. But that little incident today made it seem urgent, because this is kind of a public service announcement. Okay, so I really think you have to have confidence. If in a folding knife, if it has a lock, you have to have confidence in the lock. You have to know whether the lock is going to hold or not. And unless you have a lot of testing apparatus, you have like a little lab to test your knives, which would be cool. Okay, $30 I paid for this. And I think this one was about in the same range. It might have been a little cheaper than this one. Okay. But anyway, unless you have, that's one of the best ways I know for you to test how solid your lock is. All right. So now this one is in about the same price range. This one was $26. But Ned Foss is not one of these knife companies that you're going to mention when you're talking about great knife companies, or even good knife companies. Right? Now the material on this, I think the steel on this blade, for instance, is 5CR13 or something like that. Not a high-end steel or anything like that, although I haven't tested it yet, of course. Like I said, I just got this today. But it's pretty solidly built, and the lock held. 5 whacks. This thing gave, without the lock, this thing gave in on 1 whack. The Luzon gave in on 1 whack. Right? This lock held. $7.50 gas station knife. It held. The lock held. Now this is a more expensive knife. This runs almost $50, but I love it. Cubey makes great stuff. I know I sound like a Cubey commercial, but I have 2 Cubeys and I love them both. I'm going to get more Cubeys. But the lock held. Either one of these knives, with what happened today, either one of them would have cut my fingers. This one might not have taken them off just because it's not so long. This one, lock aside, this one is a cutting monster, and it would have taken my fingers off. So liner locks in general, well, any lock, I urge anybody that has a folding knife, unless they're just using it to, you know, even really with, I was cutting boxes and well, look what almost happened. But you need to know that the lock works. The lock is the one thing on a folding knife that has to be reliable. If the blade snaps, it's not going to hurt you. If the handle scales come off, it might hurt you a little bit. It might scratch up your palm. But if the blade fails, I mean if the lock fails, the blade goes close on your fingers, that's a really bad day. And again, I'm not ragging on cold steel, okay? I've got a cold steel mini tack on my neck. It's one of my constant companions. It's one of my best friends in the whole wide world. This is great, right? Just to show you, I've got a cold steel kudu that is on my desk all the time. This is one of those knives that I need a knife. I've used this from everything from cutting steak to stirring a glass of tea. And it's open a gazillion boxes. This is kind of my greeter knife. I was thinking about this earlier. This is my greeter knife. This greets all the other knives in my collection because this is the one I usually use to open boxes with my knives in them, with new knives in them. Okay, I'm not a cold steel hater. I'm a cold steel lover, which is why I'm making cold steel. Take a look at your liner locks. Right, you shouldn't have to rely on that secondary safety. It's a great thing to have. I've got a CRKT M16 folder that's got the lock system. I used to carry it all the time until I sharpened it down to the blade was like almost deformed. I had used it so much. It had that lock system on there that I loved. I don't mind secondary safeties. Secondary safeties are good, but you shouldn't rely on secondary safeties because they might not engage. The cold steel engages automatically, which is the way to go. But having to remember to put this on to make the knife safe, that's iffy. I mean, if you're working and if you're using this knife for any kind of work thing, or even if you're just using it to skin something or something like that, you open it up, you forget, right? And something like that happens. You go through a piece of meat faster than before. Somebody startles you, or you just fumble with the knife and you wind up hitting it this way. Not really likely, but possible, right? And if a Chinese knife, like I said, this is a Reich blade, R-I-K-E, not a Reek, a Reich. If a gas station knife can have a lock that holds, and if kind of an off-brand, obscure Amazon kind of knife can build a lock that holds, then cold steel, guys, just as a matter of pride, make a liner lock that works. Now, I understand. Maybe I got 3 bad copies, right? But the fact of the matter is that the only time I've had a knife, that at least that I can remember, a liner lock failed a spine whack test, All three of them have been cold steel. And I want cold steel to do better. Like I said, I love cold steel. Their fixed blades are great. Their triad locks are both great. But please, please, cold steel, have a look at your liner locks. And if you have any kind of a folding knife, I test it. Do the spine whack test, or at the very least, right, make sure it doesn't collapse on you this way. But I think the spine whack test is valid because life is dynamic. Weird things can happen. Right? I didn't think it was dangerous to be standing too close to a lawnmower handle when I was cutting boxes. Right? You know, I mean, D-Bag was kind of joking around in a comment one time because one of my videos, saying that we talk with our hand, that he and I talk with our hands. We got to be careful to do that because we're knife guys and we might have a blade in our hand. Okay, you're talking with your hands, and you clip something. Bap. Knife goes closed. Fingers hit the ground. Right. So no lock is 100% reliable. That's one of the reasons I no longer have used any kind of a folder as a primary personal protection knife or firearms retention knife. I use fixed blades. I can't remember who it says, but it was a tactical trainer, a well-known tactical trainer and martial artist that said if you get into, he calls it a knife fight, I don't like the term knife fight, but if you get into a knife fight with a folding knife, you've started with a broken knife. Right? Because there is no lock that's 100% reliable. But I really wanted people to think, because, I mean, it started me thinking of this thing because I was so deployed. I got this Saturday. And it's Wednesday now. And I was so disappointed because I didn't think, even though the Luzon failed, I thought that was largely because of the size of the Luzon. But I didn't think I would get another cold steel knife that would fail that way. And it failed. I hit the handle the first time. Right? And close this again. Alright, put the safety on. Okay, I'm going to wing this open. Alright, put the safety on it. So I'm just, with all liner locks, be careful. And I also want to show you this. Even with the safety on, all you have to do is put it a little bit back. Well, it didn't work that time. But I've had instances where this would start to go closed and then not. Okay? I mean, start to go closed and then get stuck. But I mean, you can see one whack, and I'm not doing this. I'm just doing this. It's very casual. And like I said, I'm a cold steel guy. I have two of these. I've got the Kudu. I've got their Sword King. I've got their Voyager. I've got their Spartan. I've got their Recon Tanto. I've got their Hideout. I've got their Kukri Machete. I've got their Kai Machete. I've got their OSI. Or OSS. I've got their OSS. Not their, I want the OSI. I've got their Koboom. I'm a cold steel dude. I'm a cold steel fanboy. And which is why I really want them to fix this shit. Okay. That's it. That's it for the rant. But I just really wanted to get this out because this is really dangerous. And I don't want brothers and sisters of the blade to hurt themselves. I don't want newcomers to the thing to hurt themselves. And I want cold steel to get better. Now, I don't know when these came off the production line. I don't know since it's bought out by that big conglomerate, what is it, GCW Outdoors, whatever they called it. But of course, cold steel was sold to a great big huge outdoor company that also bought SOG knives. I don't know when these came off their production line, but maybe the older Cold Steels before they got sold are better. And this new corporation came in there and screwed up quality control. I don't know. But I just want you to be aware. Beware of the Cold Steel ladder locks. Now I know I'm going to get a lot of Cold Steel fanboys in there just ripping me a new one, but you've seen what these things, how these things fail. Now, the first one of the Luzons, even with the safety engage, it wasn't safe. This one, as I said, is better. Now, this one is wearing in. I like this enough. This is a fidget knife. I get this out a lot and just play with it. Okay, so it's been opened and closed and opened and closed, and it's wearing in. At first, the lock didn't work on this one either. So just be aware of liner locks in general. Test your locks, but Cold Steel liner locks. My experience has been less than stellar. And with that, I will leave you with my usual admonishment. 2. Draw your knives only in just purpose. Sheathe them only with honor. And to remember that without knives, life would be dull and pointless. Please like, share, and subscribe to serve the almighty YouTube algorithm. All hail the algorithm. And it also makes me very happy. And with that, I bid you goodbye.